Guys, welcome back to the Manhood Tribes show. My name's Don. I'm your host here at Manhood Tribes, and we are continuing in a series of discussions that we're having about men and leadership. And I'm really excited to have on the show today a good friend of mine, Brian Owen, who is a performance coach. He's actually a meta performance coach, which we're going to talk a little bit about what that is and what meta performance is all about with Novus Global. Brian has had a 30-year career that has spanned all kinds of different areas, from nonprofit work to executive coaching to donor engagement, staff development, church and ministry areas. So he's covered the gamut. He has a master's degree in spiritual formation and soul care, and loves to work with individuals and teams by bringing insights from all different realms: psychology, philosophy, theology, you name it. He's got expertise in all of it. And I think he's going to do an incredible job today helping us out. We're going to talk a lot about leadership and performance. We're also going to talk about team leadership. And so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Brian, so glad that you're here today, man. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Don. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's just get started. We'd love to get to know you a little bit. So tell us just kind of some about your story and how you kind of got into this coaching work.
Well, I have my background is ministry. I've had 30 years working in church and parachurch settings, US and overseas, and I've always been interested in transformation. How do people grow in Christ likeness? How do people become the best versions of themselves? And I've always noticed that there's this gap. There's where we want to go, and then there's where we are, and then there's this space in between. And so the question is, what do you do with the space in between? How do you grow? How do you transform? And so my career really has always been about trying to understand that. How do we do that as individuals? How do we do that as teams? And so a natural next opportunity for me was to step into the world of executive coaching.
Yeah, very cool. I love that. What in particular about coaching interests you the most? Like, how is it that you kind of saw that like as a great transition from what you'd been doing, and what kind of difference are you hoping to be able to make in the lives of people that you coach?
A few things. One is, and with coaching, my audience is broader. It's not simply people in my congregation in the church, it's people in the wider world as well.
Yeah.
The other thing is a lot of the helping spaces that I've been in, or that your listeners might be familiar with, like counseling or therapy or pastoral counseling, tends to
Uh-huh.
deal with issues in the past and how they're impacting the present.
Right.
What coaching does is it talks about, what kind of future are you heading towards? Is it just a default future that's just more of the same, or a little bit of an incremental growth? Or
Yeah.
what would it look like to head into something completely different? And coaching goes in that direction. I was excited about the idea of not just simply dealing with our past and healing it for our present, but actually looking at the ways we can pursue a more thrilling future than the one we're just going to end up arriving at anyway.
Yeah. That's great. I think that's a beautiful definition of coaching as well. And just, I love the kind of future centric nature of that. That's really helpful to sort of imagine what kind of role coaching can play in our lives, and why it's maybe a little different than anything else we've encountered. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you talk about kind of the coaching that you do, you call yourself a meta performance coach, and I
Right.
kind of love this title. I'm super interested in this. But as a guy who spends time on the internet and sees all this content for men out there, like the amount of stuff that's created for men that's targeted at quote unquote high performers, right?
Right.
Like everybody wants to be a high performer or think about themselves as a high performer, or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it's all targeted at high performing men. So
Right.
okay, great, but like you're kind of going after something different. You'd say there's like four levels of performers: low performers, just your general performers, high performers, and then what you're calling meta performers. So
Right.
tell us more about that. What is meta performance? How is it different from high performance? Why is that another rung on the ladder that's even needed?
Well, I would say it's not actually another rung on the ladder. It's in a different realm altogether, because
Okay.
with as much of the high performance stuff that we have coming in, and yeah, I see it as well. The crazy thing is that's actually a problem. And that's why we go after meta performance instead of high performance. And you would think, well, wouldn't I want a company or a team full of high performers? And actually, that can be a problem. One of the coaches in our firm years ago, when our firm was getting started, he was working with a Fortune 100 company. And he said, hey, what's with the C-suite? What's the problem that you guys are seeing? And they said, well, we have a bunch of high performers. And he said, no, what's the problem?
Yeah.
And they said, no, that's the problem. Because what they were realizing, if you've got a bunch of high performers, you end up with a lot of people with kind of a diva complex. They've arrived,
Hmm.
they figured it out, and at the same time, they're simultaneously, high performers are simultaneously overwhelmed and bored. They're
Hmm.
overwhelmed because they feel like they've hit their capacity, and they're bored because they're actually not at their
Yeah.
capacity.
Yeah.
And this is not always conscious or intentional, but they become very protective of their spot on the team. So there can
Hmm.
be kind of a dampening, clamping down effect on anybody else trying to rise. So it's crazy. You would think having a high performing team would be great, but it actually can create its own set of problems, which is why we talk about meta performance instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You've got me interested. I can see the reality of that, on the different teams that I've been a part of. So tell us more about meta performance then. How is that a solution to the high performance problem, or, how would you phrase it and characterize it in the way that you describe it?
Well, I'd add a little more to it. Is like
Okay.
there are different levels of performance. So you imagine in your mind a pyramid, and at the bottom would be low performance. So low performers are
Hmm.
answering the question of, what do I need to do in my job to not get fired?
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So in my
Yep.
personal, like in
We've
my
all known a few of those.
yes, we have, yeah, we do. Just what can I do to keep my job? That's it. And you do this in your personal life. Like I low perform my breakfast in the morning. I'm
Yeah.
hungry. I just want my coffee.
Right.
I'm not out for something fancy from Starbucks. I just need caffeine.
Yeah.
Performers are wanting to do a good job. To want to do a good job. So they're not just a minimum, but to do their job and do it well. I want to do well on my taxes. So I'm not trying to be the gold star. I definitely don't want to underperform. I just want to do it well.
Yeah.
And then high performers, they want to be the best. They want to be the best at their field. And like I said, that can actually be a problem. Meta performers are answering a different question. High
Okay.
performers are answering the question, how can I be the best? Meta performers are going after the question of, what am I capable of?
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So there are some questions we answer, and then there are some questions we answer to. So the meta performance question of, what am I capable of? That is a question you will answer to for the rest of your life.
Sure.
Yeah. Because the
Yeah.
problem also with the high performer, it's sort of like if you've ever been to a dog race, or you know about a dog race, they chase a rabbit. It's a mechanical rabbit. And the idea is they can't catch the rabbit. That's what keeps them running. Well,
Yeah.
there have been times when the rabbit's caught and the dogs don't know what to do.
Yeah. What
And
happens then? Yeah.
yeah, and that's kind of what can happen with the high performer problem, is that you're chasing the rabbit, and once now you've got it, well, and it's even some high performers will. There could be a psychological issue of not exceeding too much, because, well, what else is there? So
Yeah.
it can really create a problem. So that's what's so exciting about meta performance, is that question of, what am I capable of? That's a rabbit you can chase for the rest of your life.
Yeah. No, I like that. And that's a really good kind of word picture analogy there of just sort of like the dog, chasing the rabbit around the track. It's like, how can I be the best at chasing the rabbit? Which is, that's what high performance looks like. It's really different than like, isn't there more to life than just chasing this rabbit?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and
and I'm not,
what else could I be good at? What else could I do that would make life meaningful? So yeah, I
yeah,
think that's great.
and it's not about like, meta performance is not high performance on crack.
Sure. Yep.
It's not like super ultra high performance. It's really doing more in less time with greater joy and satisfaction.
Hmm.
It's not tightening the screws on the container of life that you've put together. It's constructing a different container altogether.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I want you to tell us a little bit more about what is attractive to you about this idea of meta performance. How have you seen this show up in your life or in the lives of clients that you've worked with as a coach? Like, how
Yeah.
have you seen this be beneficial to kind of make this mind shift?
Well, it's challenging because it's some ways it's just easier to, if you're already a high performer, it's easier in a sense to think, well, let me just tighten things up on what I'm already
Hmm.
doing a little bit,
Yeah.
10% more than I did last year. And you can certainly do that. And there are places in my life that I do that. But what's exciting about meta performance is it's all about reinvention. It's all
Okay.
about, expanding. And so it's exciting when I sit with a client, I have an entrepreneur I'm coaching, and she, um, sadly divorced, and there were financial issues, and just I've just seen a total reinvention in her life as she's discovered the capacity that she has, the ability that she has that was just untapped and dormant and lying there. And she could have just kept going, a little bit, doing a little bit better each year, but going through this process of reinvention and really looking at what are you really capable of, and how are you getting in your own way? It unlocks capacity that's just lying dormant.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
exciting to see in my own life and to see in the life of my clients.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, I like this idea. Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit about team leadership, right? We're talking about men and the different ways that we lead, and
Mhm.
I think one of the things that guys find really challenging is just the whole area of being a good team leader and what that how to do that well. I think especially because as it relates to performance, right? Most guys get into being a team leader because they have been a high performer, right? They
Right.
get invited into management or leadership role of some kind because they've been a high performer. And then they get into this leadership role and they keep trying to be a high performer. And that isn't necessarily what helps them succeed as
No.
a team leader, right?
Right.
So I'm kind of curious then, like, what does meta performance, or kind of this context for meta performance, offer in terms of the way that it can help a man think about being a better team leader?
Well, what got you to where you are, you've heard this, it won't take you to where you need to go.
Right.
And so the challenge of leadership, you get into a role that you've been promoted into and you're excited about it. And oftentimes it's going to require a different set of skills, and it's going to require more capacity there.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is to unlock that with meta performance. So really, and having that posture as a leader of, instead of I've arrived, or I'm the best in what I'm doing and I'm going to hold to this position, meta performance opens up this posture of, okay, I'm here, what else can I unlock?
Uh-huh.
And it's not simply a little bit of improvement. Again, it's a shift of, you know who else can I be? It's not, you're I love personality tests and that kind of thing, but we can treat them like that's just who we can treat them as descriptive, or like we can treat them like, this is the box I'm in, instead of
Right.
instead of treating it as that's the way you are now, but there's more possibilities beyond that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
that's good. I like that.
yeah,
Um, okay, keep that going then. I'm kind of curious, like, as you talked about the sort of the pyramid, and you've got, different folks at
yeah,
different levels on your pyramid. So as a, let's say I'm a guy leading my team. I've got let's just we'll just role play this a little bit.
yeah,
I've got somebody on my team that's a low performer, like they're just trying to skate by, just doing the bare minimum to keep their job. I got
mhm,
somebody that's a, just kind of average performer, like doing their job,
yeah,
B plus employee, like, doing the thing, and doing just fine. And I've got maybe a little bit of an old guard diva high performer on the team as well. Like,
yeah.
how in the way that I'm approaching this from kind of the perspective of somebody who's trying to live in the flow of meta performance. What does that look like? How do I think about engaging each of those team members, kind of where they're at, and what am I trying to bring them to? Right, like, I think based on what you're saying, the goal isn't necessarily to bring the low performer up to the high performer stage, but what am I trying to do? What does that look like?
I think it starts with yourself. I think the most important thing a leader brings is his or her own transforming self. And I think you need to be enrolled in the work yourself, and in meta performance yourself, if you're wanting to bring that to your team. Um, I think it starts there. And I mean, it's exciting when you think about, if you've got a team and everybody is going after meta performance, like, what am I truly capable of? It can look like levels of synergy and performance that might you might just be stuck. One of the things we introduce when we come into organizations and we will work with teams, we talk about the importance of integrity. And when I say integrity, I imagine your audience is thinking it through a moral framework, and that's one aspect of it. Integrity being, who you are when nobody's looking, that kind of thing. But I'm
Right.
thinking of integrity as workability, or thinking of like if you're an engineer and you're building a bridge, you want that bridge to have structural integrity or workability. Or if you've got a bicycle and it has a flat and the steering, the gears aren't working well, that bicycle lacks integrity. It lacks workability. You wouldn't say bad bike. It's no, it's just the bike is out of integrity.
Yeah.
And so when you can
So
get a
kind of like
team,
all the pieces are integrated with one another. They
right,
fit. They're dependent on each other in some way. They're yeah. Okay.
yeah,
I'm tracking
so
with you there. Yeah.
workability, integrity that way. So if you've got a team of different levels of performers, if you all can get a commitment around integrity, around figuring out what needs to be fixed and what needs to change, and I would start with the leader himself. Remember,
Okay.
with your, that's why I say you lead it. The best thing you bring to your leadership is your own transforming self. If you're pursuing meta performance and the way I define it, and the shifts that you need to make from high performance to meta performance, it can't help but impact the system that you're part of. And then when you bring that to your direct reports, it can change the way that you're working together, and it can affect and bring integrity to your culture and to your company in ways that you haven't seen before.
Yeah. Okay. So I like that because I think kind of the way you're talking about it makes me sort of feel like the move to meta performance, and you sort of said this, but it's taken me a minute to kind of wrap my head around it. The
Uh-huh.
move to meta performance really isn't a step up from high performance. It's a
No.
almost basically a step off of the pyramid to
Okay.
be able to kind of ask a different set of questions. So
Yeah.
even your low performer can start moving towards meta performance simply by asking the question, or having you as their team leader ask them the question, what are you capable of? That's a really different framework than what's expected of me, or how do I excel, or those kinds of things that are sort of like on the pyramid type questions. Am I getting that right? Is that kind of
Yeah.
tracking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Another way to think of it is I imagine you're familiar with IKEA furniture. I have
Yes.
a household full of it. Um, you probably never had this happen, but we have a piece of IKEA furniture that actually broke down. And so
Never. That's never
never,
happened.
yeah. So my wife said, hey, the kids, the thing is broken. Can you fix it? And I said, sure. And so what I did was it was cracked. I just tightened the screw on a cracked piece of IKEA furniture.
Yeah,
And
sure.
and where this is going. A few weeks, months later, honey, you need to fix because it's
Yeah.
still not holding. So I take some glue to it now, and I'm going to glue it to hold it. And what meta performance is not tightening the screws on your life.
Okay.
It
Okay.
is, throw out. It's reinvention. It's throwing that out, throwing the container, the structure, that piece of IKEA furniture out completely, and building something new.
Yeah. So it's not really about trying to grind out that last like 10% of excellence that I'm maybe missing if I'm a high performer.
Right? No. Yeah.
Kind of where is that like golden maximum output, whatever
Right.
that I like we all kind of wish that we could get to without
Right.
having to exhaust ourselves. It's not that.
No. No.
Yeah, it's just a different framework altogether. So
Yeah. It's like
yeah,
another layer it's like if you're playing a video game and you want to it's like getting to the next level of the video game.
yeah, I got
It,
you.
it's
Okay.
going to unlock some capacities and abilities that you didn't have. It's not, and you're not going to necessarily be working. You're not. It's not moving closer to burnout without crossing burnout. It's a whole different posture and a way of performing.
Got it. Okay, so then as a team leader,
Mm-hmm.
how would you coach somebody in the like meta performance way of viewing things? Like what kinds of questions would you ask them, or exercises would you have them go through to be able to start figuring that out? Like, what am I capable of? If I'm working in the corporate world, which at this point I am, that's not what I've done most of my career, but if I've been in the corporate world for a few years,
Mm-hmm.
no one's ever asked me that question before, right? That's not a question that exists largely in the corporate world, where it's all about performance and excellence and output and productivity and just
Mm-hmm.
what's expected of me, and I want to be the best at what's expected of me. So when somebody comes along and says, "What are you capable of?" I don't even know that I have a grid for that. So, like, how do you help somebody get to a place of being able to have some answers there?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, I mean, because we're really talking about a shift from efficiency to reinvention.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it's I want to back up a little bit and just say this. To even begin to be in that kind of a place where you're like, okay, I'm open to this. There's some shifts that need to take place. And that's what
Okay.
you really got to see so, I would say that before I'm answering the question, before, your question, it's more of, you know, the posture that you need to embody. If you want to pursue meta performance, if you want to go in that direction,
Uh-huh.
there are 4 shifts that you need to make.
Okay. All right. Let's take them.
Yeah, you've got to shift your perspective. You do have to start with realizing, okay, I am far more capable than I realize. I always start with that assumption with my clients because I make up that no, we can't do surgery on ourselves. I want to make up that they have more available to them than they realize, than they've
Okay.
already tapped into. Got to
And
make that.
what is that? I'm assuming by that you don't mean like I'm far more capable of being excellent at the thing that I'm already doing, right? Like that's
Right.
not the kind of capability or capacity that you're talking about. So
Yeah.
like, what does that mean? I'm far more capable.
Yeah. I mean, you could be, okay, I'm a great communicator and I can hire a communications coach and get better at with my illustrations or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there are actually capacities that you haven't even tapped into that
Okay.
could be there. I make that up, and we don't know. And so, if you can either just assume that there's nothing there and just be satisfied with where you are, or be open to the possibility that there might actually be more there.
Yeah, sure. Okay. All right.
What can we mind? And then the other shift you need to make is a shift in perspective of your craft,
Okay.
what you do. So high performers are focused on what they bring to the table in their job. Meta performers are wondering how big that table can get.
Okay. All right.
There's you bring more to your job than you realize with your capacity, and your job, you have more to offer your job because you have untapped capacity, and your job has more to offer you.
Hmm. Okay. All right. That's good. I like
Yeah.
that. Kind of like I'm capable of a grander sandcastle, and also the sandbox can be a lot bigger than what limits have been placed on me at the moment. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Then you need to shift your values.
Okay.
We all love to be comfortable, love it, but you want to value growth over comfort, and
Okay.
that's not always easy because we like to be comfortable, and growth can be uncomfortable. But I love what Ed Catmull said with Pixar. He said, the head of Pixar, he said, every day I wake up with 2 assumptions. One is that I'm wrong about something, and 2 is that I have no idea what it is.
That's good.
Yeah, and so that's somebody with a growth mindset who's recognizes. Imagine if you were that way, or your direct reports had that kind of a mindset. Is that I want to be more committed to growth and comfort, and so
Yeah.
I'm willing to acknowledge. You know what? There's something I'm blind to, I'm wrong about, and I have no idea what it is.
Yeah. No, that's
Which
good.
leads me into the fourth thing you need to be is you need to be coachable, and you think, okay, well, of course you're saying that you're an executive coach, but I just mean you just need to do you have somebody in your life that can help you explore what you're capable of? It can be your spouse,
Yeah.
a coworker, a counselor, a pastor, 12-step sponsor, a coach, somebody in your life that can help you explore what you're capable of. And by coachable, I don't just mean that you're open to coaching. I think if you asked most high performers, are they coachable? They would say yes. And what they mean by that is if someone wants to offer me feedback, I'm going to be willing to receive it.
Okay.
But when I say coachable, I mean that you're aggressively pursuing it out. So high
Okay.
performers are open to feedback, meta performers are aggressively hunting for it.
Okay. All right. I would say that's a different shift. I don't notice most of the high performers around me being people who pursue that kind of feedback. I would agree with kind of what you're saying. It's like
Yeah.
if there's somebody who comes along and says, "Hey, is it okay if I offer some feedback on how this is done?" Rarely is somebody going to say no. They
Right.
might be a little defensive about it, but
Right.
probably they got to being a high performer because they were willing to receive some feedback in the first place. But they're not really seeking it out. In fact, most high performers that I tend to be around are far more comfortable dishing out the feedback, right?
Yeah.
They kind of feel like, look, I've sort of mastered this set of skills or this
Right.
particular expectation of the job, and I'm good enough at it at this point that I can actually help other people be able to do it. So they're the ones giving the feedback, and not necessarily going and looking for
Right.
any of it, you know?
Right. Which is why it would be tempting if any of your listeners are leaders in companies, it would be tempting for them to listen to what we're saying from the posture of, okay, this is great. How can I change the people, all my low performers and okay performers and my
Right.
diva high performers, which is why I'm like, start with yourself.
Sure.
If you are a leader who is a meta performer and you've made these 4 shifts, there's an undercurrent of humility there. If you're like,
Yeah.
God, I have more capacity than I realize, my job has more to offer me, I'm willing to be uncomfortable, and I'm aggressively seeking out feedback, that is a fundamental shift in how you're showing up as a
Yeah.
leader.
Yeah.
And so, I think back to your original question, how would I coach somebody in that? It's like, it's first of all, helping them realize this is the kind of coaching space that I'm inviting you into,
Okay.
where we're going to be exploring untapped capacity in yourself, untapped resources at your job. I'm going to invite you to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And we're going to create a safe place for you to aggressively pursue and experience and receive feedback.
Okay. Well, yeah. Tell me some more about how does somebody who's not used to doing that actually go about it, right? I mean, I'm sure they can get feedback from you as their coach, but you're also not the one living in their day-to-day realm,
Right.
being
Yeah.
aware of and seeing what's actually happening with them. So how do you encourage somebody to go and aggressively pursue that feedback? What does that actually look like?
Well, I think it would look like regularly asking people in your life, what's it like to be on the other side of me?
Okay. And
And,
is that just work people or family members? Like, is it just
yes.
dependent on the situation where you're trying to grow, or it needs to be anybody?
Well, what I find for me is if something is showing up anywhere, it's showing up everywhere.
Oh, okay, good. I like that.
Yeah. If there's something coming up for me at work, rarely are the character issues or the leadership issues that I have been mirrors that have been held up to me at work. Rarely have they been something radically different from what my wife has been trying
Yeah.
to get me to pay attention to
Sure.
as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
If my
Maybe I'm
coworkers
the
think
only
of
one.
me as a, yeah, if my coworkers think of me as a demanding boss with high expectations, my family is probably feeling that in some way, shape, or form as well, right? It may not
Right.
be a one-to-one
Yeah.
translation,
Right.
but that sentiment is going to show up. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that. I would agree.
The reality though is at work, if there's a power imbalance. So your direct reports aren't
Mm-hmm.
going to feel safe giving you that kind of feedback.
Right.
You're on a team, your peers, giving them the safety to do that, and then those your supervisors. And if you can create a space that's safe enough for your direct reports to do that, that can be a real gift to yourself as well and to them because they're seeing it too. But
Yeah.
I would start with your peers and go from there.
Okay. And what kind of things do we need to get feedback on? I mean, is it just? I'm assuming it's not just performance related. You're kind of speaking more towards like character kinds of things here. For somebody who's not used to, again, in the corporate world where character's rarely a part of the conversation, like
Right.
how do you go about getting that type of feedback if you've never asked for it, or those kinds of conversations are foreign to your job environment or your team environment? What does that kind of look like?
I've been in organizations where we've had 360 reviews where they're anonymous, and there is a place for your direct reports to give feedback on how you're showing up, your character, your follow through. I think in the work environment, I think it can be really helpful just to look at how you're doing with your commitments, how you're doing with your word, what you're giving your word to. So we talk with clients about committing. When we say commitment, it's doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, and just even making a distinction between what you're committed to and what you're interested in. So, like
Yeah.
if you're having a conversation at work with direct reports or peers or higher ups, getting clear on what everybody what's their interest in and what there's a commitment to, and getting clear on that commitment and then following through. And then if there's a breakdown, there can often be like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't follow through. Oh, it's okay. Well, it's actually not okay because you gave your
Mm-hmm.
word to
Mm-hmm.
something and there's been a breakdown. But if teams that can create systems where when there's been a breakdown and a commitment, and the broken commitment can be acknowledged, and then this is hard and it stings, but this is where the power is to ask, what was the impact of me breaking that commitment?
Okay.
And then giving people the space to say that, and then the chance for you to go, okay, I'm gonna recommit to this now. That can, as you begin to do that process, it can and begin to follow through on your commitments, it will increase trust among your team members and trust with yourself. Because how often do we say we're going to do something and we tell ourselves we're going to do it and then we don't do it?
Yeah.
We break commitments to ourselves, but as we learn to make commitments and keep them for ourselves, it increases our self-trust.
Yeah.
And then we start doing that with the people around us. And if there's just a system for when commitments do break down, to repair it, to acknowledge the broken commitment, ask for the impact, and then recommit to it. That repair process. If you've got a culture where that's what's happening over time, where there's a commitment to integrity, workability, a commitment to follow through, and and then when commitments are broken, a process of repair, it can change the environment of a team. So as far as feedback goes, just being willing to get feedback on how you're, a lot of times this is what will come up in work environments: a lack of commitment, late to meetings, a lack of follow through. And I would start there, and that's where things can really change.
Okay, this is where I think it gets really fun, because now you start talking about the kind of stuff that we all deal with on a daily basis in our work environments, right? And it's like you're kind of saying like these things that are like minor or trivial are actually kind of the puzzle pieces that reveal
Huge.
where we can go deeper into dealing with someone's not just performance, but their way of being,
Yeah.
and in doing that actually begin to see some real change, watch the team dynamics get healthier. And so I love that. It's kind of like, it's a little bit like a treasure hunt, right? Like you're kind of unlocking the secrets of
Right.
what's really going on with the people on your team, and not in like a weird or inappropriate way. I just mean like, you're revealing the things that hold your team back from
Yeah.
being able to be as great as it could be. But you're not just having to come at it from the perspective of a performance improvement plan.
Right.
It's actually about like hey, let's explore that. Let's figure out what's going on there and why
Yeah.
you're consistently 15 minutes late at the start of the workday, or when I'm dealing with one right now at work where we're kind of on a cycle where we've got team members kind of in and out at the moment, either on vacation or different things like that. And so people on our team just have to share responsibilities with each other on the team when we're out of the office.
Mm-hmm.
And inevitably, there's a couple folks on the team that nobody wants to hand stuff off to when they step out of the office, because they know it's not
Yeah.
going to get done if I hand it off to them, right?
Yeah.
So the rest of us kind of end up being the only people who can stand in the gap when somebody is out of the office and kind of fill in for them. And that's not right. That's not okay. I think that's a great example of kind of what you're talking about, like a broken commitment. There ought to be that same level of shared commitment across the team, but there isn't. And recognizing that is sort of the first step in really figuring out like, okay, here's a place where this can reveal what's going on for us team performance wise, and could be an opportunity to kind of help take us to the next level. But we've got to be willing to go there, and
Yeah. The
that's
feedback.
hard to do.
Yeah. Can I share an example of something we saw with this?
Yeah.
What this, being late can sound trivial. One of the things we do with clients is within the coaching space, we're creating a container for transformation, and we have agreements, and some of them might sound like a bit much, but there's a purpose for them. For example, when we set up our coaching agreements with clients, we say our meeting starts at X, and anything over 1 minute beyond the start time is late, and that's a broken commitment.
Okay.
And so we won't let it go. We will bring it up, and you might think, okay, that's ridiculous. It's just a minute. Why would you do that? And yet we love broken commitments, and that sounds crazy because of what that can reveal. It can reveal a pattern. So one of our coaches had a client he was working with, and this client was more than a minute late to the meeting, and so the coach addressed it. And this is not to shame. This is not about shame or condemnation. This is about exploration.
Right.
What can we find here? Is there resource here behind the broken commitment? Is there a pattern? And as they taught, they realized that this was a pattern for this client, and it was a pattern in his company, and it was a pattern with their the struggle to get accounts paid, receivables taken care of. Solving this broken commitment of being late to a meeting saved this client's company $800,000 that year.
Okay.
All because
that's a pretty significant impact to bottom line, right?
Right. He was a minute just because this client was willing to grow, to be coachable, to explore what he was capable of, and discover what can we unearth underneath that broken commitment. And there was a pattern that was unearthed, a gap that was closed, and revenue sort. All
Yeah.
these accounts that weren't being collected on were taken care of, all because of just something as simple as that, because it's a symptom of something bigger.
Yeah. Okay, this is really good stuff. I think this is super helpful work. I think it's so intentional to just be able to say, yeah, if you want to be a good leader of your team, you've got to be a good leader of yourself, right?
Yeah.
It really does have to start there.
Right.
And but I love this model though, because it's essentially saying like the work that I do with myself is the same work that I can then do with my team, and so it just translates really well into being able to say like, my team's performance doesn't just have to be all about skill acquisition, or bottom line productivity. It really can be about, hey, I care about you, and I want to with you ask this question of what are you capable of, and
Right.
let's figure out. And in some ways, that might reveal some situations of like, well, you could be capable of this, but here's a couple things that are in the way of that, and let's talk about why those things are in the way,
Right.
and why is it that you struggle with being late,
Right.
or whatever the situation might be. But it just opens the door for some of those kinds of conversations that are so hard to have in a
Yeah.
corporate environment, but really can, I think, be kind of the secret code that unlocks building truly great teams and being a great leader. So yeah, I really like this.
Absolutely.
Anything else that you want to add there, or things that we haven't covered that you would want to throw in?
Um, I believe in this work because of what it's done in my own life.
Yeah.
I would say that this is I just for my own, just to tell my own story. Like me from the faith world, the ministry we were both part of. I was by all outward appearances successful. I was great at fundraising. I was leading a team. I was well trained, well seasoned, and many ways doing quite well. But in my personal life, I was not doing really well. I was in my late 30s. I was still single, and I had gone to graduate school in this program, spiritual formation and soul care, all about closing gaps. How do we grow into Christ likeness, become the best version of ourselves? And
Mm-hmm.
that program, there were times I thought, what on earth did I sign up for? Because they required you to deal with your junk. They required
Yeah.
you, it was not a comfortable environment. It was an environment of growth, a lot of coaching, a lot of feedback. They required us to go to therapy for 6 months. And that therapy was so helpful, I went another 12. But one of the things that we talked about in that space was, with my therapist and, my grad program is like, I'd love to meet somebody. I'm really successful here, but I'm not successful here. And one of the things my
Mm-hmm.
therapist said to me, he said, why don't you go back to the girls you used to date, ask them why that relationship ended, get some feedback from them.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
tough. Yeah.
yeah. And I did, and it was helpful. Because we're trying to look for patterns. And
Yeah.
it was in that season of life that I met my wife. And we've now been together, for 18 years. We've got 3 kids. And there is still more to unlock. I still
Yeah.
have a coach because I'm well into midlife. We've got, 2 teenagers and a 12, almost 13-year-old, and the door slamming in our house. We don't, yeah, it's crazy. But there's, yeah,
Same, brother. Yeah, I can
yeah.
relate.
So I'm just saying that I've seen this in my own life. I was high performing in ministry and
Yeah.
doing well in so many ways and successful. And there was more to unpack. I had blind spots in my relationships, and I needed help going after that. And through putting myself in a space where I was uncomfortable and coached, I saw growth and transformation, and I now have a family. And 18 years later, there's still more.
Yeah.
And so I invite my clients into a journey that I was on and I'm still on.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
That there's no way.
None of us are done ever, right?
No.
I mean, it's there's not a finish line there.
Yeah.
But I love that this framework is really one that can morph and grow with you. That as there's always things to continue to work on. It's
Yeah.
not just about moving up to the next level of the pyramid. It's really just continually unlocking that sense of what am I capable of?
Yeah.
And being able to go, with that question, kind of wherever it leads, wherever God leads
Yeah.
in the midst of that particular question, I think is a great way to follow him as well. So, well said, man. This has been really good.
Thanks.
Guys who are listening, if they are thinking, okay, this Brian guy sounds incredibly awesome. I'm ready for some meta performance coaching, or even just want to explore more about it, hear more about it from you. What can they do? Where can they find you? How can they get in touch with you?
They can go to my website. It's brianowencoaching.com. And I spell Brian with an I. So brianowencoaching.com. And there's a link in the top right corner to book a discovery call. And we can jump on a call for a few minutes. I can tell you what it's like. My favorite thing to do is to serve prospective clients with a vision call. We'll do an hour where we can, unpack, where are you at in your life? What are you going after? How are you getting in your own way? And I love to just offer that as a gift to experience the work and to see if we might be a fit to work together.
Yeah, perfect. So guys, even if you're not thinking long-term coaching is the thing for you, a free 1-hour vision call is an offer that's too good to pass up. So get in touch with Brian, and I encourage you to schedule some time with him and see what you can do to find out what you're capable of. This is a fantastic way to be able to continue to grow as men. Brian, thanks so much for being on the show today. It's been really, really good to have you, and blessings to you, man, as you continue to do this work.
Thanks. Great being with you, Don. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right.